What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are going to take a look at one of the new deck building sets releasing this week in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, and it is called Amazing Defenders, and it comes with 3 completely new archetypes, and we're gonna see how amazing they really are. Get it? Yeah, very funny. Okay, let's get straight into it. Like I said, it's a side set. It only comes with 60 cards, and not all of these cards are new. There's a couple reprints, there's collector's rares in there, and it has a couple of neat things in it, but we're not going to be talking about the reprints today because those don't change the game. So what I'm going to try and answer is, what do each of these 3 individual archetypes do? Because we're going to cover all 3 in today's video. We're not going to make a video on each individually because I think some of them don't really warrant that. But as a whole, I do think it's a respectable set that it's at least worth talking about and considering whether you want to build a deck with these. And the archetypes in question are Rescue Ace, Pearly, and Mikanko, and that's exactly the order in which we're going to cover them as well, because we're going to go, in my opinion, from least exciting to most exciting, meaning Rescue Ace is the one that I deem to be the least exciting one. Now, we're not going to read every single card effect one by one. That's something you can do for yourself. I'm just like trying to briefly explain what the archetypes are trying to do and what I think of them as a whole. And the whole Rescue Ace archetype is an archetype based around firefighting machines, I believe. It's like there's like a fire hydrant and whatnot, and the whole thing of the archetype is that its boss monster is pretty good. You can banish 2 Rescue Ace from the graveyard to special summon Rescue Ace Turbulence from the hand, and then during your main phase you can set up to 4 Rescue Ace quick play spells and or normal traps with different names directly from your deck. And then it has a little bonus effect on top of that, but that's not really that relevant. The main part is literally that you get to set 4 cards from your deck, which sounds amazing at first glance. However, let me tell you, the cards that you get are not that exciting, because what you get is essentially all of these cards have a first effect and then a secondary effect that requires you to have the hydrant on the field as well. Like the entire archetype is a little bit centered around having the little fire hydrant on the field, which is kind of cute, but it's also a little bit of a liability because all the spell and traps are kind of mediocre on their own. Like Alert, which just adds a Rescue Ace from grave to hand, and if you have the hydrant you can add it from deck instead. Rescue revives a Rescue Ace in your grave, but if you have the hydrant you can target a monster in your opponent's grave instead. Contain negates the effects of a monster that your opponent controls, makes it unable to attack, and if you have the hydrant it can also not be used as a material for any of the summon stuff. And Extinguish destroys an effect monster, and if you have the hydrant they also can't activate any of the effects for the rest of the turn of that monster. Now, if you get all that through, if you get your Turbulence on the field and it resolves, that's kind of neat. Although, I mean, a Search, a Revive, a 1 negate and 1 destruction still isn't the most insane payoff. The problem is that if this card doesn't resolve, if this card gets negated, the entire archetype does a whole bunch of nothing. And all of these cards, while they are kind of cute if you get them for free from the Turbulence, you still have to put like a bunch of these into your deck, and you're gonna draw them a significant amount of the time, and they are not that great if you draw them, because they are basically only really good if you get all of them together for free off of the Turbulence. And if that doesn't happen, or you just draw them on their own, they're not that great. And that's the whole thing with the archetype, because it doesn't really do that much else beyond than that. Most of the monsters here are kind of like small extenders, tutors, whatnot, and it's all centered around, I think, getting the Rescue Ace Turbulence onto the field. And in my opinion, that's just not enough for it to make it a super viable deck. I also don't really see any insane synergies with other archetypes or decks that already exist, and the fact that you just have to include all of these mediocre spells and traps into the deck for it to be worth it, I think makes this a rather mediocre strategy overall. I don't really have a replay for this ready, simply because it's relatively straightforward. Like a couple of 2-card combos get you to your Turbulence, but I personally don't think that's enough to make the deck viable. So moving on, we've got Puri. Puri is, in my opinion, a little bit more exciting than the Rescue Ace archetype, although not super exciting. So the way Puri works is it's an Xyz based strategy that currently revolves around only 1 main deck monster, similar to how Sky Striker started out with just Ray to get into its extra deck monsters. This only works off of this little guy, this little Eevee looking dude, Puri. And Puri gets you into your different extra deck monsters. The way it does that is it has a couple of memories. Different memories: pretty memory, happy memory, and delicious memory, and a couple of XCs that, yeah, beauty, happiness, and plump belong to that. And then you have like bigger rank 7 XCs that you know. And the way it works is kind of like Zodiac. It's kind of like, it feels like a mix of Zodiac and Sky Striker to me, because you kind of have the Zodiac thing where you only need one of these to overlay into the XYZs, because what Puree does is, when it's normal or special summoned, excavate the top 3 cards, and if you find a Puree spell trap, you can add it. And then once per turn, you can reveal a Puree quick play and special summon an Exceeds that mentions it from the extra deck on top of Puree, and then attach that from your hand. So basically, you reveal delicious memory, you get plump. You reveal happy memory, you go into happiness. You reveal pretty memory, you go into beauty. And that's neat, right? So what do these individually do? They're not that insane, right? Beauty is like is an effect negate, and it's a quick effect if you have the pretty memory. Happiness is at the end of the damage step. If it battled, you can add a Puree card from deck to hand, and if it has happy memory, you can also have the attack of a monster your opponent controls. And plump is targeting 2 spells and traps, attaching them to plump as material, and this is also a quick effect if it has delicious memory as material. Now, all 3 of these can attach any of the other memory cards to themselves as material when you activate them. So they can basically grow in terms of materials when you activate other memories, which, since they are XYZs, this enables a couple of very big Zeus plays, which is basically like what this deck is also about. It's just like going into a huge Zeus in main phase 2 with like 6 or even 8 materials, which is neat. That's a cool thing. I would say without Zeus, this archetype would probably not be relevant at all, but since we do still have 3 Zeuses in the TCG, it is here and it is supporting this deck a lot. The cool thing about this deck, because you might think to yourself, oh, it's rather inconsistent because we only have the one main deck monster that we need to go into the extra deck. It has another feature that actually reminds me of Runic, where all of the quick play memory spells have one effect, and then they have the optional effect to special summon Puree from your deck by discarding a card, right? So they all have a small first effect, and they are all basically emergency teleport for your Puree, and none of them are once per turn. So if your first play doesn't work out and you have another memory in hand, you can activate that, special summon Puree again from your deck, and that's kind of neat. So they are a little bit like mini Runics in that sense, right? The problem with it is that you have to discard, which is not the same as you do with Runics, and the first effects are not even close to the power of Runic effects, where like Runic effects get to like destroy a monster, negate an effect, or pop a back row. The primary effects of the memory cards are not even close to that good. Like you can make one monster on the field unable to be destroyed by battle, right? And then you can special summon the Puree, or apply this effect to one card on the field, and then that card cannot be destroyed by a card effect one time. And then pretty memory is like each player gains 1,000 life points. Now that's it. It's not even close to the quality of Runics. However, there is one very cute play that I wanted to point out with Purees that I think, so far from what I've seen, is the most impressive one. We're gonna jump into a situation here, a little bit of a spot in this replay where, let's say our opponent has a huge board set up of like a couple of Tearlament cards mixed with Sprite Elf and Abyss Dweller, you know, things you would normally see. And we only have a little Puree and one Puree happy memory. Now, what could we possibly do to break this board? Like, let's say we've exhausted all of our opponent's resources, all of their responses, and we can now have, like, we only have these 2 cards left. Like, what can we do? Like, surely it can't be that much. Now, I will say this is pretty impressive. We're gonna use Puree to reveal the happy memory, and we special summon happiness, because that's the one that mentions happy memory, and now we have to attach the happy memory to the happiness. All of the Puree memories, something I haven't mentioned yet, is that they also give the Xyz monster an effect, right, that they are attached to, if they are attached to a Puree XYZ. And now the effect that happy memory gives is this card can attack monsters a number of times each battle phase up to the number of Puree happy memory attached to it +1. So that means the happiness can now attack 2 monsters in this battle phase currently. And now if we remember, Puree happiness, or Puree happiness I should say, gets to add a Puree card from deck to hand every time that it battles, and that is also not once per turn. So what we can do now is we can go into the battle phase and attack over the Sprite Elf, right? I deducted 200 damage, but this should have been 600. It doesn't really matter. I thought this was 1600 for some reason. Now we're going to trigger it and we're going to activate it to grab another happy memory. And now because we have happy memory as material, we can also have the attack of a face-up monster. We're going to have the Kaleido Heart in this situation, right? And now because we already have one happy memory attached, we get to do a second attack. So we're going to attack over the Kaleido Heart. Now, for some reason, I now figured out that was 2000. Okay, well, happiness is going to trigger again, adding us another happy memory. And now what we can do while still in the battle phase, we have the Dweller, and now we activate the happy memory to just like apply the effect. We don't even have to summon with this because this is optional, right? You can discard a card if you do special summon level on Fury. We're just going to activate it to apply the effect to the happiness. And then we're going to activate the quick effect of happiness up to thrice per turn. We can, attach the Fury quick play that we just activated to the happiness, right? So now it has 2 Fury happy memories attached, which means it has 3 attacks, and we've only done 2 so far. So we can do the third right now onto the Abyss Dweller, right? Moving on into the Abyss Dweller, doing some damage, getting the search effect again, right? And we can now rinse and repeat until we've done this with all of our happy memories, which means we can attack a total of 4 times, halving a monster after each attack, basically giving us the next free attack target. Here we're going to add a random Fury card, doesn't really matter. We can activate another happy memory that we have searched previously, giving us another attack. Here we're just going to attack into the Merlion defense position. We're not destroying this one because this only halves the attack points, but still we're going to get another search. And this basically has enabled us to clear a bunch of monsters off of the field, including monsters that were bigger than the Fury Happiness, because we get to half the attack after every attack of one monster. And we get a search and an extra material onto Fury Happiness each time. And now we've created a decent amount of card advantage here, like cleared 3 monsters, with just 2 cards. We still have 3 cards total. We have a Xyz with 4 materials right here. So what we can do in main phase 2 is we could make a Downard and a Zeus here, right? And so after clearing almost the entire board, we can still make a Zeus that can trigger 3 times to really gain control over the game. This is honestly the most impressive quote-unquote combo or interaction that I have seen from the Puries, is that they can create a lot of pressure going second with just a singular combination of Fury plus 1 happy memory. The problem is that I don't really know what Fury is supposed to do going first, and I don't really know what Fury is supposed to do if your opponent has either not made a board that is weak to this, or they have like ways to stop this in the battle phase. Because the way it works is Fury can only go into its XYZ monsters in main phase 1, right? By activating the effect of the Fury monster, the main deck monster. So I don't know if I would build a deck going second just for this, or if you mix the Fury deck with other archetypes, but then if you go second, you basically have this really strong line of play. Like if your other plays fail and your opponent uses their responses on the other engine that you used, you can maybe like break apart their board after that. I think this is pretty impressive. However, the rest that the deck does, I'm not super impressed by, right? Like the other monsters basically ending in like a monster negate in the form of beauty, or in like being able to disrupt spells and traps in the graveyard. And then like the rank 7s are really hard to get into because you need like rank 2s with 5 or more materials, and then they're not even that strong. Like Noir is not bad, Happiness is not that great, it's like an OTK machine, but I think it rarely works. Noir is like decent, but like I'm not convinced yet that this is relevant yet, right? But the line where you break boards just with 1 happiness attacking over and over and over again, I thought was pretty cool. They will receive support in the future, and at some point I could see them being playable. Not right now, because the power level I think is a little bit too high with Ishizu tier and Sprite and stuff like that at full power right now. Maybe after a potential ban list, we might be able to revisit this deck. It is cute, quite literally, and that combo is not too bad. Last but not least, Mikanko. Now, another ritual-based archetype, which I'm always a fan of, right? This one combines ritual monsters with equipped spells, has a very unique ritual monster with 0 attack and 0 defense, but this thing can like equip cards from your graveyard even during your opponent's turn, apply the effects of the equipped spells to your opponent's monsters, because they have a couple of really cool ones. Most notably, this is a combo pile. This deck is a combo enabler. I don't think there's like a control Mikanko version out there. This deck goes really well in other combo decks. Like I'm going to show you a replay that's paired this with Libromancers. I think the ones that are really worth mentioning, because I don't want to go to each individual one, the trap cards are not very good. The main deck monsters are strong. This one is a monster that can take control of your opponent's monsters in the opponent's turn, so it's a decent disruption. This one is the best combo enabler, because if this one becomes equipped with an equipped card, you can add any Mikanko equipped spell from your deck to your hand. We're going to see what we're going to use that for in a second. The cool thing about Ohime is that it basically lets you, while it's in hand, add a Mikanko card from your deck to your hand and then discard another card. Why that's cool for a ritual monster specifically is because that means this card searches its own ritual spell, meaning it gets rid of the necessity to draw both the ritual monster and the ritual spell, which has always been an issue with rituals, right? It's like you need 2 cards to perform a ritual summon that belong together. And in the case of Ohime, if you draw Ohime, you can add the ritual that you need. And there's 2 ways you can summon Ohime. There's the ritual spell, which just performs a ritual summon with a little bit of a bonus. If you go second, you can use this bonus a lot sometimes. If you have a couple of equip spells in the graveyard, you can destroy cards your opponent controls up to the number of equip spells with different names in your grave and inflict some effect damage even. So that's kind of cute. But even better is the Great Mikanko of Legend, which is not a ritual spell, but special summons a Mikanko monster from your hand, ignoring its summon condition, but returns it to the hand during your opponent's end phase. So basically, if you have an Ohime and a card you want to discard, you can grab Mikanko of Legend and just summon out the Ohime, and that's pretty good. And you can even banish this from the graveyard during your main phase to send any Mikanko card from deck to grave, so you can send any equip spell from your deck to the graveyard that you want to equip later with Ohime. Equip spells worth noting, Arabesque is the best one by far, because this card is pretty nuts. It's basically emergency teleport as an equip spell. Now, how does that work? You equip it to a monster, and then you can special summon a Mikanko from your deck, and then bounce the monster that is equipped to. This does work on opponent's monsters as well, going second. You can activate this, bounce your opponent's monster, and get a teleport, which is quite interesting. Going first, of course, you'll have to bounce your own monster, which can sometimes be annoying, but you can also use that to your advantage in some combos I'm going to show you in a second. So that's pretty good as a starter card / extender, and a board breaker going second. The 2 other ones that are really worth noting, or like there's one more here, which is just a reborn from the graveyard. And then there is Purifying Dance and Inviting Rondo. Now, Inviting Rondo just steals an opponent's monster. Now, remember, Ohime can equip this to your opponent's monsters during your opponent's turn. So that's pretty neat. And then Purifying Dance is a little bit more situational. I don't think that one's a staple, but equip only to a Mikanko monster, cannot be destroyed by card effects. If a monster is special summoned to your opponent's fields, you can target a monster you control and monster your opponent controls and bounce them both. So technically also an interruption. However, I think that Inviting Rondo is a way better disruption. Now, the deck itself on its own, kind of meh, kind of mediocre. You can set up like an Ohime and a Nini maybe, like, which can steal 2 of your opponent's cards. Like Nini can steal and Inviting Rondo can take 1, but like it's not that amazing. If you pair this with some other stuff though, it can be quite interesting. I'm gonna show you how. For example, now credit to this combo, I believe I saw it first in a Nesh video. I don't know, I don't think he is the one that invented it. I think it was a player called Tublenario in an online tournament who showed up with this for the first time. We're gonna start off with just Libromancer Fire and Libromancer Doombroker. Now, you guys know I'm a fan of Libromancer, so I'm enjoying this combo. I'm going to tell you what I think about it afterwards, but we're going to end in quite the insane field for just starting with 2 cards. You guys know the jam with the Libromancers: reveal a ritual in your hand, special summon themselves, do something. So we're going to reveal Doombroker, add Geek Boy reveal Doombroker, special Geek Boy, add the field spell, add Agent. Now, I'm going to make a Flame Swordsman link to. Don't bother with it, it's just here because it's a fire monster. Because we're going to be trying to make Isolt, right? Equip spell archetype, remember? Special summon Agent by revealing Doombroker, add back Libromancer Fire from the graveyard. 2 warriors now make Isolt. Isolt on summon effect is going to grab us an Agent for follow-up or a discard later. And then we're going to use Isolt's effect, dumping Arabesque to summon Renaud. Renaud, level 1 warrior, pretty good card if you remember Infernobles. Adds back the ritual spell when it's special summoned. Which is how we get into the Mikanko cards without drawing a single Mikanko card, which is kind of cute. Equipping Arabesque to Renaud allows us to special summon Hare the Sword Mikanko and bounce our Renaud. Now, I moved the Arabesque here because it becomes equipped to the new monster, which normally it wouldn't change position. I just did that to indicate that it, is no longer equipped to the Renaud, but it's now equipped to the Hare. The Renaud is bounced to the hand, and the Hare is a fire warrior monster that if it becomes with an equip, add a Mikanko equipped from deck to hand. So we're going to add Blazing Dance, which is the reborn, right? And now, since we have a fire warrior, we can special summon Renaud from the hand and it becomes a tuner. So we get a free Herald of the Arclight here. Now remember, we started with just 2 cards. We're going to link the Herald and the Isolt into a cross sheep. We're going to Herald of the Arclight Surge Benten, which we're going to need to ritual summon our Doombroker, which we're going to do in the next step. Tribute Benten, special Doombroker. We're not going to trigger cross sheep just yet to draw 2 and discard 2. We're going to do that in a second, but we do want to set the trap with the Doombroker first so that we can't draw into it, because that'd be a waste. So we're going to trigger Benten to summon to search Diviner. Now we're going to activate Doombroker to get Intervention, which is an Omni Negate. And then we're going to activate the Blazing Dance to revive the Mikanko monster from the graveyard. This triggers Cross Sheep now. So Cross Sheep is going to draw us 2 cards and then discard 2. And we're going to discard the Diviner and 1 other card. The Diviner, we want to discard that because we're going to go into Sprite Elf next to revive that Diviner, send another Arclight, which searches Ohime, and then since we haven't normal summoned yet, we can summon fire, and since the Herald is now level 6, we make a Baronne de Fleur, and because we don't need to draw the ritual spell because Ohime searches it, we just go for Ohime to add the Great Mikanko of Legend. We're gonna discard one of the other cards that we have in hand, because remember, we still have plenty. We only used 2 to start this combo, and we've even drawn 2 in the process. We're gonna use the Great Mikanko of Legend to special summon Ohime, and then we can even banish this from the graveyard to foolish either the Snatch Steal or the Bouncing equip spell. With if you play both, you have the choice. If you only play one, you send that one. And now we end with an Omni Negate from Intervention, an Omni Negate from Baronne de Fleur. Ohime can equip an opponent's monster with either the Inviting Rondo or the Purifying Dance, which is pretty cute. On top of all that, we also have a Sprite Elf still, which can revive a Diviner to send, for example, an Elder Entity Entis to pop another card. And all of this is just from 2 cards. If you add more extenders into the mix, this can get more and more, you know, insane of a board, right? And you can even make the Baronne earlier on in the combo to stop cards like Nibiru. It is quite the solid combo. Now, what do I think of this? Is this just insane? I don't think it is insane. I don't have a deck list for this yet. I'm going to experiment with it a decent amount on stream, I think. However, the problem that I see here is that the entirety of this deck is super combo heavy. It doesn't, I don't think it will have a lot of room for like tech cards, non-engine cards that make sure you can pull this off going second. And personally, I think if the Isolt gets negated in this whole interaction and you don't get access to the Renaud, because the Renaud does a lot in this combo, right? It gets back the Arabesque, it provides a free bounce for the Arabesque, it's a tuner later on that makes you Herald, which then searches you other combo pieces, so on and so forth. I think it's really hard to get this through if your Isolt gets negated. And of course, like, this looks insane, but you also play a lot of cards that you don't want to draw, right? Your Intervention, your some of the mechanical equip spells you don't really want to draw. I don't think you want to draw the Renaud. The agents are not that great to draw. Like, there's a lot of you know, it feels a little bit like these adventure combo decks, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure if this is going to be top meta immediately. All it goes to show is that the Mikanko cards have a decent bit of potential, right? And a decent amount of synergy with other existing archetypes already, which is why I believe the Mikanko cards to be potentially part of a tournament winning deck in the future. Now, does that mean the set is great or what? I personally think the set is not as bad as people make it out to be, because some people have said that they're not a fan of the set. I think the set is actually okay. I think specifically Puri and Mikanko, I'm not disappointed by, at least. I think they have a decent amount of potential in the future. I think the reason why this set seems underwhelming is that the power level of the current format is incredibly high. If you look at full power Shizu tier and even like Sprite and Floanderies and the upcoming Kashtira archetype, which, you know, we're going to talk about Photon Hypernova format in the upcoming weeks a lot on this channel. I think that's what makes these seem a little bit underwhelming. I wouldn't count them out completely though. I think at some point, specifically Mikanko, I have a decent amount of hope for that this can appear in a couple of well-performing strategies. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Which is your favorite archetype from this new set? What's your favorite collector's rare? Because that's always a cool topic. I personally like collector's rare. How do you feel about that rarity? I personally think it looks sick on some cards. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this prepared you well for the upcoming Amazing Defenders booster set. If you have any further questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Feel free to follow the Twitch link in the description below if you want to hang out in future streams, or just subscribe to the channel. All the good stuff, you know what it is. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope this was helpful. Peace. Until next one.